Okay, so if you just join us, very, very good morning. The big story, apart from the Euros, which we're going to get stuck into again in a moment, Erik Ten Hag will remain as manager of United following a post-season review by the club's board. He went into the FA Cup final in Man City amid a backdrop of reports claiming he was going to be sacked no matter what the outcome was. United won 2-1, of course. It's now understood they're talking about extending his contract, which is about to enter its final season. For more on this, we're joined by talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, Alex Crook. Alex, a very good morning.
Morning, Alex.
Good morning from a sunny Berlin, I'm pleased to say. Much brighter here than it was this time yesterday.
At least you ain't got a sausage in your mouth today.
That wasn't a flattering image, Ray, at all.
No, sorry. I've just had a look then. I was like, what's that?
What is it, Alex, before we get into United and the Euros, that Berlin is a place that I haven't been to. I look forward to it. Ray and I will be popping out there just for a flying visit.
For social.
But yeah, for social. Is it a nice city?
Oh, I've got to say it's been fantastic so far. That the people have been very hospitable. There's lots to see in terms of architecture, some great restaurants, some great bars as well. I think you'll fit in quite nicely.
Lovely. Now, what about this story coming out of Manchester then, that it could be an improved contract, not just a case of, well, we'll see how it goes for 6 months. It looks like it could be getting a new one, Ten Hag.
Yeah, that's certainly my understanding, that United will advance in negotiations about extending that contract. And I think they almost have to do that because this review has been carried out very publicly. We know that more than one manager was spoken to in terms of United potentially looking at alternatives for Erik Ten Hag. And I think in order to cement his position in the dressing room and not to weaken it, I think they have to be seen to be backing the manager. I have to say, I think the review process went on for too long. United will say that's because they didn't want to rush into any knee-jerk reactions, didn't want to leave any stone unturned, but it's been nearly 3 weeks now since Ten Hag masterminded that FA Cup final win against Manchester City. I think they could have come to this conclusion a lot sooner. I think ultimately that they looked at the managerial situation, the managers that were out there and were available, and I think they've decided actually there isn't anybody better at this moment in time than Erik Ten Hag. I think they've looked at his relationship with the young players, particularly at United, the likes of Kobbie Mainoo and Alejandro Garnacho really improved on his watch last season. That's a big tick for him. And I think also, and this is really important, I've said it several times on talkSPORT, they look at the way Erik Ten Hag has handled himself in the face of some unfair criticism and pressure at times. I think that story that came out 24 hours before the Cup final saying he would be sacked either way, it's proved not to be the case. I think that was very unhelpful for Erik Ten Hag. He's a hard-working guy. He's the first in at the training ground, I'm told. He's the last one to leave. Let's see if he can reward their backing. I think they also feel that the powers that be at Old Trafford, that he deserves the right to operate under a proper structure. We got Dan Ashworth at some point coming in as the new sporting director. Jason Wilcox is already in situ to help with recruitment. Omar Barada, their experienced and well-regarded chief executive, is coming in. All the things that Ten Hag hasn't had so far during his tenure at the club.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Behind the scenes has been where they've really been let down, Manchester United, and whatever manager might have been there, it was always going to be a difficult job. But the guys you just mentioned now, they're going to have to play a massive part now if they're going to get Manchester United back to where they should be. And as Henry Winter said earlier, recruitment is so important in football now. We all know that. And over the years, the recruitment probably hasn't been good enough for Man United. As a United fan, Alex, I know you're not a United fan, because it's probably a split decision, isn't it? Some people want him to leave, some want him to stay. As a United fan yourself, what camp was you in?
I think I was probably in the stay camp, and I tweeted last night saying that common sense has prevailed, in my opinion, mainly because the list of candidates that have been linked with United, for me, aren't an upgrade on Erik Ten Hag. And I think it actually highlights the fact there aren't too many elite-level managers out there at this moment in time. And I think it's interesting. You say it's split. If you go to Old Trafford, excuse me, I think the majority of match-going United fans have been behind Erik Ten Hag, and I think they'll support this decision.
Alex, just switching now clubs, this is an interesting story. Aston Villa are reportedly considering legal action against the Premier League just a week after City's announcement they were doing so. What about this? How worrying for the Premier League if this is true is this, Alex?
Well, it's not a surprise, first and foremost, because I think Aston Villa are one of the clubs who are backing Manchester City in their legal action, and they are one of the clubs who are going to be affected by these PSR rules. They're being affected already. We know that Douglas Luiz is very likely to join Juventus. They're trying to get some money in for him in order to stay under the PSR threshold. It's going to be a really interesting first couple of weeks of the transfer window. It opens on Friday, and clubs have until the end of June, when the current PSR period ends, to sell players in order to balance the books. There are at least half a dozen clubs in the Premier League, Villa being one, who are having to do that. So I think they're very aggrieved because they've just qualified for the European Cup for the first time since they won it back in the early 1980s, and they feel they're being hamstrung in terms of adding to the squad and really competing in that competition. Matty Cash is another player who could well be sold. AC Milan are very keen on him, but in terms of the damage to the Premier League, I think ultimately that will come down to whether or not Manchester City are successful in their own legal challenge that started behind closed doors on Monday. I think as numerous pundits have said on talkSPORT, if City and now Villa are successful in this, it will change the face of English football beyond recognition.
Yeah, Alex, nice one. We'll talk tomorrow. Alex Crook live from Berlin. Jeff.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.